Hey guys, Stealth here. Today with a new game. This is Cold Waters. Now, Cold Waters is a game where you command a submarine. We have various submarines to pick from, all Western units. The game is focused around doing either single missions or doing a campaign, and the campaign is what we're going to be doing in this situation, in this video. Now, the game is a simplified version, as it were, of, for example, games like Subcommand and Dangerous Waters, the games that I grew up with and the games that I practiced on. I was an absolute, and basically still am, an absolute submarine nut for these things. And to be honest, I already found some flaws in the game Cold Waters. Some units acted a bit unpredictable, and I think that the game still needs some polishing, but it is definitely workable. So we're going to have a look at it, and we're going to start out with the campaign. Situation 1984. As tensions build along the Iron Curtain, the Warsaw Pact launches a devastating, DEVA stating, by the way, surprise attack across the Fulda Gap. This is the gap among the Iceland area. Central Europe is plunged into war and NATO struggles to push back. Resupply convoys from the United States are crucial to the war effort and must be defended. NATO naval ops assign you to the Norwegian Sea and the North Atlantic in an attempt to maintain control of the situation at sea. Let's get started. We're gonna name the commander Stealth 17, and we're gonna get started. Now I can select my vessel. Unfortunately, there are no super modern submarines. The Seawolf and Virginia class submarines are not available, just as the more modern British submarines are not available. What we do have is the LA class, we have the Narwhal class. This one is rather outdated at this point. Service since 1967, whereas the Los Angeles was introduced in 1976. I believe they still have some of them in service, although they are slowly but steadily being decommissioned. We have the Skipjack nuclear attack submarine. 1959 is when this thing saw service. And the Permit class nuclear attack submarine. All of these things are nuclear. We are not commanding a diesel electric sub. In case you're not familiar with that difference, diesel electric submarines are going to be sailing smoothly and quietly underwater using their electric batteries. And once in a while they're going to have to come to the surface or close to the surface to snorkel and make sure that they can use their diesel engines to resupply the battery. Of course, nuclear submarines don't have that issue and can stay submerged for significant periods of time, basically only being limited by the amount of food that they carry and the stamina of the crew. Now, we're going to be selecting the LA class, Los Angeles nuclear attack submarine. We have Mark 48 torpedoes, we have the Moss decoy. This is a weapon that simulates being a submarine. So I can send that out in a different direction, and we have potential threats going after that target instead of me, thinking that that is my submarine. We have UGM-84 harpoons, Tomahawk anti-ship missiles, and Tomahawk land attack missiles. Now, you might be thinking the missiles are going to be vastly better than the torpedoes, but this is not the case. Missiles always give your position away, because it's basically a large smoky finger pointing down at your submarine, because these things are of course surface weapons. They have to be launched and they are going to be ascending from the sea, whereas torpedoes can run silently for at least a good couple of kilometers before they go active. So I'm going to be relying on torpedoes mostly and missiles as potentially a later weapon. Alright, subject, new command assignment, effective immediately. You are hereby assigned command of Los Angeles class submarine USS Dallas SSN 700. Congratulations and good luck in your new command. Mr. Reagan, what will Reaganism mean for US foreign relations? I'm going to be skipping that. Brezhnev's legacy, stagnation and paranoia. That looks like a Gepard right there. Provoking the bear, is Reagan pushing too hard? Looks like a bit of a prelude to the whole campaign. Soviets down civilian airliner. Yeah, that could be the final drop in the bucket that's going to cause the war. Tensions between Washington and Moscow are now elevated to a degree not seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis in '61. Overall military readiness is heightened as NATO exercises in the Pacific and Atlantic are denounced by the Soviet Union as deliberate imperialist provocations. And it looks like they're readying their submarines. Pershing missiles, Pershing missiles deployed in West Germany. Yeah, I can't see that going down well with the Soviet Union. Soviets thought nuclear drill Able Archer was real. I believe that this is an actual exercise that almost sparked a war. The exercise Able Archer. Reds attack war declared. They are moving across the Fulda Gap. That's where we're going to be operating. Initial negotiation attempts rapidly broke down and the state of war has officially been declared between NATO and Soviet Union. NATO losses are reportedly high. Wonderful. Alright, mission orders. Enemy cruise missile submarine is transiting southward in the Norwegian Sea towards the North Atlantic convoy routes. Sink it. This enemy submarine is believed to be a nuclear-powered Oscar class or Charlie class. It may have an SSN escort. What we're looking for is an SSGN. Submarine guided, so it has guided cruise missiles and it is nuclear-powered. It may or may not have an SSN escort. This means that there may or may not be a second nuclear-powered submarine nearby. Primary objective, sink and locate and sink the enemy cruise missile sub. Secondary objective, none. Avoid detection, weapons free. I can fire at anything I like. I am requested to go under MCON. This is emissions control. Maintain radio silence until otherwise directed. Fine work dealing with those boats, Commander. Your contribution to the war effort will make transit for our convoys a lot safer. Inability to meet the enemy submarine threat with resolve will make life on the Atlantic a lot more difficult for our colleagues. Not to mention a heck of a lot more dangerous for the Murchies. We'll have to step it up. Let's get going. Now, I can rearm and repair. And this means that I can select what kind of weapons I want to have on my ship. Currently I have 12 Mark 48 torpedoes, I have 2 Mosses, and the second number there, 0, means I have 0 launched or 0 loaded in my tubes. I have 8 harpoons, no Tomahawk anti-ship missiles and no Tomahawk land attack missiles. Now I don't need any of these. I'm just going to be relying on torpedoes and potentially a Moss, maybe 2, to try and misdirect the enemy communication effort. So let's get going. Alright, the Fulda Gap, we're operating, look at that. Is that all the bad guys that we have over here? All of these armored vehicles? Now, for some reason the game is not quite telling me what to do. There's the submarine. It just passed the SOSUS network between Iceland and Tórshavn and northern Scotland. Why can I not deploy my submarine? This is weird. I can see my submarine there. I can more or less control this thing, but... Ah, there we go. You have to drag it over. Well, the game could have explained that better. I gotta say, this is the most unintuitive interface I have seen recently. We had a couple of surface combatants there. Alright, so this should spark the engagement. Or so you'd think. Yeah, here we go. We have a sonar contact, bearing 1, designated Sierra 1. Current depth 900 feet, heading 7, Saring magnetic, speed 26 knots. That's remarkably fast for a submarine. I'm sorry, the enemy contact at this speed. So we're going to be slowing down as quickly as possible. And knocking down this volume quite a bit too. There we go. Okay. Current situation. We have our Los Angeles class submarine. We have an enemy submarine contact. It's just not registered yet. It's a Sierra contact, which means it's being detected by the sonar system. And the objective right now is to try and reacquire it and find it. And then identify and then kill. This could take a while. This is what submarine simulators are quite notorious for. They are very, very niche market. Oh, there it is. They are not exactly the high-paced or fast-paced games that you might be used to at the moment. Now what I'm going to try to do at the moment is use my submarine and my sonar systems to identify what Sierra 1 might be. You can see downhand right side I have the signature tab open. I can see that this is contact Sierra 1. I can see that contact Sierra 1 has a couple of sound signatures here. These are the sound signatures from the submarine, or from the contact, and this is what I can use to compare it to. So if I'm going to switch to a different sound profile, I can see that we might be dealing with a Delta IV SSBN, but we know that it's not a ballistic missile submarine. We know that it is a guided submarine. So it's not going to be the B, because B says ballistic, means the nuclear attack missiles. So that's not it. But, hang on, it is being identified as a Delta IV? Really? I don't think that's accurate. It might be an Oscar, the SSGN. We just have this sound spike, which is currently around 1500, or that's where it should be, and his sound signature is slightly different. It's definitely not an echo. There. Now the 1000-meter spike lines up, the 1500 lines up, and there's just this one around the 500 that's not quite right. That might be it. We might be dealing with the Juliet SSGN class submarine. Okay. Now, I'm going to be loading, or actually my tube's already loaded. I want to get a bit closer first. On the bottom left hand you can see SOL. This is solution, or the quality of the solution, which means I more or less know where the submarine is, just not exactly so. And the fact that I have found it at about 9 kilometers out when the submarine is doing 3 knots is remarkable. Normally you wouldn't really be able to do that. Now, next phase of the battle is to do what I call, or what is called in the branch, a target motion analysis. We're going to be doing a couple of maneuvers. I'm going to head port full rudder and just try to do a few maneuvers to see where exactly this contact goes. Especially in subcommand and dangerous waters, these things were mandatory, otherwise you could just not get a good identification going. You could not get a firing solution, and you could simply not get an idea of where the target is. These things can take a long, long time. Fortunately, the game is going to allow you to do that a bit faster. With the F9 key, we can speed up time. So you can see that right now, time is being sped up. My submarine is turning a bit faster. Rudder amidships. There we go. Solution is now 95%, and we are dealing with a Tango class submarine. I can even spot the Tango. There we go. This is not a submarine that is armed with ballistic missiles or even guided weapons. This is a standard SSN, meaning it is a hunter-killer submarine. Let's see if I can find the profile. It's a Typhoon, Juliet, Sierra, Alpha, Victor, Tango. There we go. It's not even a nuclear submarine. This is a diesel-electric sub. Again, remarkable that I was able to find it at that range. But considering that we are weapons free, I'm going to make my turn to the right so that I can still use my torpedoes when they are attached to the ship. This may sound weird, but torpedoes, especially the later models such as the Mark 48, are connected to the ship via a wire. And as such, allowing you to control them while you are still connected to them. In order to do that safely, you have to more or less line up with the target. So I'm going to very slowly make a turn. I'm going to rig the ship for silent running, or ultra quiet. This means that the ship is going to be making as little noise as possible, hoping that that tango is not going to detect me. This also means that I cannot move at a high speed, because the more speed you have, the more likely you are to be detected. Let's see, his depth is not known. We know what his speed is, we know where he is more or less. So we're going to need to make sure that torpedoes can still find him. I'm firing 2 torpedoes at him, because submarines tend to deploy a couple of noisemakers. These are distractions for my torpedoes, making it much more complicated for my torpedoes to find the enemy target. Looks like the tango is acting a bit weird. It's moving at about 6 knots. And we are starting to lose the solution. You can see that it's dropping to 81%. So the solution is no longer as accurate as it was a moment ago. Alright, that will do. Rudder amidships. We're going to fire one of the tubes. And there he is. I'm going to send out this torpedo to start its way on the quiet. Once it gets to this waypoint, it's going active. Here's the torpedo. This thing is... Wait, one. We're getting active sonar pings. That is rather unlikely. Because sonar pings Yep, that's the tango. These guys are immediately giving away the exact position of the tango. The only reason why you'd want to ever be pinging away with a submarine is if you are desperately looking for a target and the enemy already knows where you are. Now, he may have not exactly known where I am. The torpedo is going to give him some indication. We can already see him down there. The torpedo so far should not be detected, because the torpedo is currently quiet, it's in passive mode. Once it gets to the destination, to its position here, it's going active, which means it's going to actively start wanging away with its own sonar and try to find the target. The problem is that this guy may have now found me, and you can see that he's definitely speeding up. He's already currently moving at 12 knots. But I have found the AI of this game to make some very dubious decisions. Especially regarding the use of active sonar. Now, my torpedo just went active. You can see it has a large search cone and is looking for targets inside that search cone. It found the tango, has acquired, is speeding up, and at this point the tango is going to be probably pretty desperate. He's going to have a torpedo closing in on him. But so far, he's not actively showing signs of running away. He's still only doing 13 knots. Whereas if you have a torpedo coming after you, the best way to try and avoid it is to run at best speed or pretend to be a hole in the water. There we go. He just drops a sound beacon, a noisemaker. This means that temporarily my torpedo has missed the target. Now, it's still being on a wire. I can redirect it onto the target because we know where it is. There you go. It avoided the noisemaker. Has now reacquired the submarine. And if you could... There we go. We have a hit. And the tango is down. I'm not sure if that's the only submarine that we're looking at. Yeah, there are still vessels nearby. So I cannot leave the area yet. We need to move away to leave the area. There is still another contact that we haven't actually found yet. So we need to go and do that. Now the S2 contact that we can see here might be what we're looking for. So I'm once again going to make a turn to port. Going to zigzag a little bit to try and get a more clear reading on the contact that we're looking at. And it might judging by its sound profile, be yet another Tango. So another diesel electric sub. If that thing is around, then we're going to first need to build up a solution, and then we're going to have to fire another torpedo at it. We're going to speed this up a bit. Rudder midships. He's moving at about 8 knots. Oh crap. We have an enemy aircraft overhead. This, I believe, is a Bear-class aircraft. Submarine Hunter. I don't exactly know where it is, but it is definitely going to be a threat to my ship. This thing can drop sonobuoys. Sonobuoys are there to detect your submarine. Now, I wouldn't be able to detect the aircraft, and it would definitely be moving a lot faster than 8 knots, so I'm confident to say that the ship that we're detecting here, the contact that we have here, S2, is not the enemy aircraft. So we're going to speed it up again. I'm still running ultra quiet, which means that I cannot reload my tubes at current. He's still closing in. You can see solution is rising slightly, 43%, 44%. Trying to make a turn starboard. By the way, this key was provided to me by the developers. I asked them to send me a key so I can show you guys this game to give you an indication of if it is something that you might be interested in or not. Submarine warfare is definitely not for everyone. It can take a long time to both master as well as try to actually get some kills in. It can take a long time to counter enemy submarines, to detect them. So if you're looking for fast-paced gameplay, this is definitely not it. But if you're willing to learn the intricacies of submarine warfare, underwater conflict, then this is an interesting starter game for you. Because while it is a simplified version of Subcommand, it still has some very, very accurate elements of submarine warfare. Now, Sierra 2 is still at about 10,000 yards, so that means about 9 kilometers out. The question is, where is he? Ambient noise here is rather low. There's the noisemaker. Actually, no, that's the enemy submarine we just sunk. That's the Tango, or one of them. I hope that by turning, my towed array is able to find the signature again. Because at the moment my towed array, you can see it here, VLF LF towed. This is very low frequency towed sonar array. So that's a cable with a couple of hydrophones towed behind my submarine. That's the one that's currently getting the best signature from these, or from the Tango that we're tracking here, Sierra 2. I'm trying to do a maneuver here in order to get a bit more information about that ship. Rudder midships. I turned a bit too far, to be honest. He's starting to close in, 8,000 yards out. Solution is 50%. Now at this point I'm getting a bit nervous about how close he's getting. I'm relatively confident at this point that we are in fact dealing with another Tango, so I'm going to identify him as a Tango. And we're going to start turning towards him and fire off 2 torpedoes if we have to. The solution is 66%. That's at the moment good enough for me. I do not want to let this guy get any closer. Now there is one risk if you're playing a game such as this, where you're learning a bit more about submarine warfare. You are not as likely to be enjoying any action movies where submarines make an appearance. Because somehow action movies tend to depict submarine conflict as very, very action-driven, active sonars wanging away, missiles being fired. Generally, that is not the way that the submarine is normally employed. That's not the way that the submarine is usually brought into conflicts. Alright, solution is now 80%. He's in a course of 206, so he's coming more or less my way, as you can see by the indicator of the direction there. This should do. Rudder midships. He's now 87% accurate of a solution. So we're going to send out this torpedo to start out at a range of, say, 5,000 yards. Torpedo away. I'm still ultra quiet. I still hope that this guy cannot find me. Oh dear. I think he heard the torpedo launch and is now actively firing away with his sonar, trying to find my submarine here. So this is going to be an interesting fight. If he is indeed going to ping me with sonar, active sonar that is, there's a very, very good chance that he will find me. But again, a submarine instantly going active once he's spotted an enemy target, or once he heard a torpedo launch, it's a bit unusual, it's a bit rare. But then again, it's going to be very, very difficult to be programming an AI to work with a submarine, because it takes a lot of people a lot of time to learn this. Now you can see that the enemy submarine is turning away. He seems to be going deep. Actually, he's trying to surface, or he's trying to lose some depth. Alright, let's see where he's going to be heading. I'm going to manually activate the torpedo. Torpedo is searching. No, that's not it, buddy. That's a dead submarine. Damn it. He wants to acquire the other submarine, so considering it's still connected to my ship, I can still control it. He's still attached to the first tango that we sunk. The enemy sub is still not running away, surprisingly. Whereas at this point you should be getting rather worried. Now let's see if we can get this guy. Because currently he's not detecting him yet. Where is he? Is he too high? No, he is below the duct over there, so he should be found by the torpedo, but he might not be high enough. That's a problem that we might be facing here. See, the submarine is pretty much there. So my torpedo is going to miss it entirely. Alright, we're going to have to launch another one. Tube 3. Ready in all regards. Fire. Let's speed this up a bit. Oh, counter-torpedo coming in. At this point, we need to start taking evasive action here. I'm going to cancel ultra silent. I'm going to go all ahead flank, turn around as quickly as possible. And I am really not looking forward to an enemy torpedo coming in. Now we just lost the wires on both of my torpedo tubes, because at this point I'm making such a drastic turn, as well as making a lot more speed, that my submarine is no longer able to maintain connection to the torpedoes. This is my torpedo. It's going to just follow its intended path and then go active, but I can no longer control it. And I can no longer hear the enemy torpedo, because I'm making so much noise that it's going to be difficult to actually find that thing. He's still cavitating. Tube 1's loaded. Solution's only 56%. Let's drop a noisemaker and then turn hard to starboard. Noisemaker is going to be distracting the enemy torpedo. Alright, hard to port again. We're going to create a little bit of current here. There we go, that's a knuckle. A knuckle is basically another way of creating a distraction for an enemy torpedo. Right, the tango is more or less there. Now I'm going to do what's known as a throw over the shoulder, which means we're going to fire a torpedo. It's going to instantly go active, and it's going to start looking for targets behind me. This is a bit of an unusual maneuver. Ah, shit. Tube 1 jammed on launch. The tube has been damaged, so we're going to have to fix that thing first. Let's slow down a bit, because I'm currently making 32 to 33 knots, which might be a bit too fast to launch torpedoes at. I still want to get this guy. Slowing down to 22 knots, 21, 23. Something detonated there. Yep, I think we got it. No vessels nearby. There are, however, weapons nearby. The enemy still has a couple of active torpedoes in the water. This is mine. This is theirs. Theirs, however, is seemingly veering far off course. And unfortunately, thanks to all of that speed that I built up, there it is. The question is, what's it doing? Because it seems to be snaking around, so zigzagging one side to the next, trying to find my submarine. But I am rather deep, especially when compared to this torpedo. You can see my submarine just over there. Of course, a torpedo doesn't exactly see it like that, it just sees a large object in the water. Now at this point, you could argue that if this thing has a specific weapon setting, known as a Doppler filter, if I'm passive or completely still in the water, it will not detect me. The Doppler filter works in such a way that if a target is stable, is not moving at all, it is just regarded as piece of terrain. And you don't want your torpedoes to start homing in on pieces of terrain. That simply doesn't make any sense. What you want to do is make sure your torpedoes hit moving objects, because the normal course of action for a submarine is to start moving away. If you're doing the exact opposite, you can confuse the torpedo. It is just not guaranteed to work. That's the problem. And especially in a game like this, I'm not exactly sure what the weapon simulation is. So if it has those Doppler filters, if it has that level of depth. Torpedo keeps snaking around. At some point he is going to run out of fuel. I hope he's going to be doing that before he gets to me, because you can see he already made quite the trail, especially coming from the Tango. Don't know what kind of torpedo we're looking at and what kind of range they have. So what I'm hoping for is that they're going to run out of energy, run out of fuel, and then basically sink. Once that's done, I can end the mission. Keep snaking around. Let's speed this up a bit. Keep snaking. I think he's looking for targets on the shallow. You can set your torpedoes to have a specific area where they're going to engage. Yeah, you already passed my submarine. You can say that you want your torpedoes to only go after surface contact, for example. You have these indicators for that. So I could say, well, I only want my torpedo to be looking for contacts which are high or which are low, or which are basically anywhere in the searcher's cone. This way you can have it avoid killing off enemy submarines and instead prioritizing surface contacts. If that's the way that this torpedo is set up, it is not going to even consider my ship a suitable target. So we're going to have to just avoid the torpedo for now, turn the other way, and hope that it's not going to do anything else. We still have the enemy aircraft overhead. We still have weapons nearby. We still cannot end the simulation. Torpedo should be running out anytime soon. That thing can run for a long, long time. There we go. He's out. And now we're done. No vessels nearby, no weapons nearby, no aircraft nearby, and we have no flooding. Leave combat. After action report, 2 enemy tangos sunk. Weapons remaining 12 Mark 48 ADCAPs, or 12 48s, I'm not sure if they're ADCAPs. No damage except for some damage to my torpedo tubes. Mission update, well done, but unfortunately this was not your mission objective. No, it wasn't. That may have to do a little bit more with the fact that the information here is not exactly what I was expecting it to be. Anyway, this is your first look at this game. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, it is not for everyone. So if you're thinking, hey, this is definitely not for me, then you may have already stopped watching. If you are considering buying this game, I would recommend you wait a little bit, because some of these ships are still acting a little weird. And hopefully with a few updates that's going to be fixed. So I'm going to give it a tentative go for it, especially if you're a submarine fanatic like me, go for it. This is going to be an interesting game for you. Otherwise, keep an eye on it and wait for it to develop a bit more. That's it for this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments, and I'll see you soon for more videos.